name of, got it. Name of a person who's quickly becoming synonymous in our ranks with fun, bubbly, uplifting, informative, and just a great person to get to know. I think she's a fantastic cheerleader for all of Soroptimist programs. She comes to us from SI Auburn via many other clubs. And at this time, I'd like you all to help me welcome Donna Ronca.
Hey, everybody. I kind of laugh when she says that, when she says all that stuff, because what she really means is that I'm just loud and I don't really have that much of a filter, and I'm not running for anything, so I'm not stumping for votes, so I don't care if I hurt your feelings a little bit. So just work with me on that. Actually, I've been a Soroptimist for about I have down, whenever I ask for a bio, I always say I've been in Soroptimist for 35 years, but it's like much longer than that. But I don't want you to think that I'm older than I actually am. So I just say around 35 years, something like that. I've been a member of like 3 different regions over my Soroptimist career. I've been a member of multiple clubs, so small clubs that are struggling, large clubs that have a lot of members, and you know, different kinds of challenges in a club like that. I've worked with many clubs over the years. In my role when I was on the SIA board, I got to go to multiple different regions, and so I got to work with the regions and with the Healthy Clubs programs. So I've had a good look inside of a lot of different clubs with a lot of different challenges. And right now, the challenge that we have, and I have to hold on, I have to change this because I'm looking right at my own face, really big, and it's just not good for me. So I'm admiring myself instead of paying attention. So I have a pretty good perspective on some of the challenges that clubs are facing. And right now, one of the things that I think many clubs are struggling with is we need a board. We need some leaders. We need to have a bench to go to for bringing in new leaders in our own club. Now, just to have a little show of hands, how many of you are still working on filling your board who haven't quite got that done yet? And don't be scared. There's going to be a lot of other hands as well. So how many of you have that? Oh my gosh, that is just like so awesome. How many of you have had trouble in the past filling those spots? Okay, good. Well, that's what we're going to talk about here today. Who's going to lead us next year? Who's going to be on our new board of directors? Who's going to chair our committees? Who's going to do those things? And how do we mix that up so you get all of your members a chance to sort of be in the mix? Some clubs have got a really deep bench. There's a lot of clubs that have a lot of members and have plenty of members who are ready to stand up and jump on. But sometimes there's smaller clubs. After this 2 years of pandemic, some of us are seeing maybe a shrinkage of our membership. And so maybe there's not as many members as can fill all the spots that we have. But it's important that we start to talk about that and think about that and plan for that as we go forward. So I want you to open up and tell me what you think are some of the challenges to members stepping up into a club leadership role. And unmute yourself when you just shout it out. And if you don't, I have some things.
They don't feel qualified.
Sandy, go ahead.
They don't feel qualified.
Don't feel qualified. What else are you hearing?
Time. They don't have time.
Time. Not feeling qualified.
They don't like talking in front of people.
Yeah, it's a big one. They're just scared. What else?
Sometimes people feel that they have new ideas, but they're afraid they won't be accepted. Like we've always done it that way. And how am I going to fit in?
My God, so huge. Yes. What else? Well, here's some things. And some of these things you've touched on. First of all, it's too time consuming. It's just going to take too much of my time. Members give the president a hard time. You know, they aren't flexible for her, and they judge her. There's too much paperwork that has to be filled out. I'm just like Sandy said, I'm not knowledgeable enough. I haven't been a member long enough. I don't really see myself as a leader. I'm more of a follower. There's just too much club drama that I don't want to have to deal with. I haven't gone through, this is one of my favorites, I haven't gone through the required hierarchy that it takes to finally get to be president of the club, because I've got to be every board position before we get there. Or, I just don't know how to do it. So I just don't feel like I should be stepping up. Well, sometimes it's a combination of all those things. So maybe there's no reward in it for them. Maybe there's no encouragement given to them. Maybe there's just a fear. Maybe there's no support. Maybe there is too much work. But in the end, like, maybe it just isn't any fun. And if I have an opportunity to have some fun, or to spend a couple of hours on something that I feel really passionate about, I find the time. And I think a lot of you do that too. That's why we're Soroptimists. That's why we do what we do, because we're passionate about our mission. We're passionate about helping those women and girls. And a lot of us have been members for a long time. We're friends, we know each other. We enjoy getting together, and we just have fun. And when we do those things, when we're fun and we have passion and we're passionate, we find the time. We find a way to have fun. We find a way to do things that we're passionate about. And so maybe what we need to do is sort of take a step back and look and see, why isn't being on the board fun? Why isn't being the president fun, or something that you're passionate about being? I think we need to flip the script a little bit. I think we need to make members want to be on the board, want to have a good time, want to be the president. So I'm going to share a couple of stories about women that I know personally that loved being the president, and they loved it because obstacles were removed. And these stories can be meaningful for both new presidents and for members who are members that you would like to be on the board or on a committee position. So the first biggest reason, hands down favorite, I love being president because it was fun. One of my president friends, Barbara, she actually started a whole tradition of these types of installations. We talked about this last night, and I know Christy touched on it. The club made the installation all about her. It wasn't about anything else. It was all about her. She had a couple of daughters go through pageants. That was her life, pageantry life. So the installation was a pageant. There was tiaras, there were sashes. She had formal wear. She was crowned the queen. They served her favorite food. They had her favorite people there. People sat around telling cool stories about Barbara and things they loved about her. It might have been about the mission a little bit, but it was mostly all about Barbara. And once they did that, and they did a big deal about it. And then after Barbara, every president after that got an installation that was sort of geared towards her, that was personalized to her. So it made it fun. It made you kind of like, I'd kind of like this to be about me too, even if you don't want to say it out loud, you're thinking it. So, it's like, it sort of gives you a reason maybe to step up, to look forward to the fun part of being president. Pat, my friend Pat from SI Vista, actually down in Southern California, she told me a really great story, and that was her members, when she was really reluctant to be president, and when she finally stepped forward and agreed to do it, they really appreciated that. And so throughout the whole year, they did little things that showed her how much they appreciated her. So sometimes she'd come in and they'd have at her seat, they had like a box of her favorite cookies just sitting there for her. They'd send periodically throughout the year, they'd send her just thank you cards and cards of appreciation. They brought her flowers one time for no reason other than thanks for showing up and leading us. She came to her podium one time and there was a Starbucks gift card at the podium for her. And as a rule, they would serve her lunch and bring her drinks, so she didn't have to get up and do that. So they just thought of like a lot of little things that they did throughout the year that let her know, thank you for leading us, thank you for stepping up, and we really appreciate that. And so other potential presidents then it's like, oh gee, maybe I'll get the Starbucks card too. But at least you feel like you want to do it when someone's appreciating you on a regular basis, not just once in a while. I did an installation at the Founders Region one year, and I gave the governor and the governor-elect these $9.99 Amazon princess wands, and you press the button and they zing and they light up, and they're just like very cool little things. And I gave them those at at the region conference. And they took those and gave those to their club presidents. And then those club presidents, and this was, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe more. And now they're still passing that darn wand down from president to president, because it's fun to have the wand. It's fun to zing it when you want, to make the noise and see the lights when you're the president. So do something fun, do something that's, unexpected and not stodgy, not like, oh my God, I gotta get up and I gotta be the president. I mean, who wants to do that? But if you have some things that are fun in there, maybe you do want to be the holder of the wand for that year. I love being president because I got a reward. Luann, Luann's actually one of my best friends. She was a president of SI Oceanside Carlsbad a couple of years ago. And she wanted to be president, but she also wanted to do a special project that her club had not really started before. And something that was really dear to her heart was a Dress for Success program where they gathered clothing for women returning to the workforce. And so she said, oh, I'll be happy to be president, but I really want to start this project this year. And so they said, okay, if you be president, that's what we'll do. So they did that particular project that year. It was really successful. And what they did since then is that if you they've established that president's project. So every year since that time, they have had the president's project. And if you're the president, you get to pick a project or an organization that you want to pay some special attention to. And the members get behind you, at least for that year. That's what you do. And that's a great incentive for those, especially for those members who maybe belong to some of these organizations and would like to spotlight what their organization's about. Be president, and then you can do that. A lot of clubs pay for their presidents to go to convention. I know this isn't always easy to do. When I was in small clubs, how we did it was we had little personal projects. Only members. We didn't invite the public to it, but just for members, we had a theater night and we upcharged the tickets, and all the upcharge went to send the president to convention. We did movie nights, same kind of a thing. So sold Seas candy was just for that. So there were just little tiny projects that weren't a problem that as a small club we used to send the president to convention. When I was president about 1,000 years ago, I got to go to Kyoto, Japan. And they didn't pay for my airfare, but they paid for my registration, and you know how that can be. They paid for my registration, my food, they paid for my hotel for the whole time that I was there. And then they gave me, some spending money on the side, which was pretty nice. And I mean, honestly, I got to go to Kyoto, Japan because I was president of my club for a year or two in that case. But, it's like, I've been members of other clubs that's the thing. They line up to see, okay, for the next 5 years, where's convention going to be? So I know when to volunteer to be president because I know where I want to go. So I don't want to go to Anaheim. I don't want to go to Cincinnati, but I'd really like to go to Helsinki. I'd really like to go to, Ireland or whatever we have coming up now. We'd really like to go to those places. So I think that's the year I'll be president. And then you just got to fill in the extra years. So that works out pretty good. So it's a nice little reward if you can make that work for somebody who's willing to step up and be president. I love being president because everyone encouraged me to run. Now, this is my own example. When I was a new, young, lithe and adorable new Soroptimist, I was pretty much in awe of the women, the caliber of the women that were in my club and in the organization as a whole. In my club alone, there were school principals and there were bank presidents and there were business owners and there were, I was in my 30s and I was just like, I was not there yet in my career. And I just thought that was so cool. I was just not worthy. But the governor at the time, her name was Mary Belo, and she came to me at one of the meetings that we had. And she said, and she just pulled me aside and says, you should run for district because we need your enthusiasm. And I was just like, oh my God, the governor, she pulled me aside. I can't believe it. And I didn't run right away, but it started me thinking, what can I do? Because Mary Belo thinks that I can. Past president of SIA, Vicki Hobbs, some of you may know her. And when she was governor, she called me and she said, would you be region program chair? You're the first person I thought of. And though I would write down those words, because when she said that to me, first I thought she was lying to me. And then I got to know her better, and she was all right. She was probably telling the truth, but I couldn't say yes fast enough. I didn't know what the heck I was supposed to be doing. I didn't know what, this is when we first started doing region chairs for the different pillars. So I didn't know what that all entailed, but I was the first person she thought of. And so, I was going to say yes. How can I say no to that? So she, maybe she was lying, but maybe not. So what you want to do is you want to take that and plant those seeds of encouragement early, do it often. I mean, maybe you don't have someone who's ready or can serve as in a leadership role this year, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't start thinking about it for next year or the year after, or within your club or outside of your club. I mean, we got to get those seeds going now, especially with new members. When you hear that a new member is joining, it's a great thing to tell her, you know what, I was so excited that you're joining because I know you've got great ideas and you can be such a leader for us. And even though maybe today she doesn't want to be president, but start her thinking, you can do it. We're excited because we know you can bring that to us. I love being president because they let me do it the way that fits me best. We have got to be flexible. We are just, how we do things after our pandemic years has changed, and it's not gonna change back. It's not going to be like it was, whether it's in our charitable organizations, whether it's at home, whether it's where we work. Things are not going to be the same anymore. They're just not. And we may as well just figure it out. Angelica wanted to be president of SI Covina West Covina, and she had some job responsibilities that would not allow her to preside over all the meetings, and she was not going to be able to meet certain deadlines. But the club decided that how can we work with her? So what they did is they ended up appointing co-chair or co-presidents. So Angelica and Joanne, they split the duties up, based on what they could do. And the club has done that a couple of times over the years since then, because it worked well, because they were flexible and worked with her. Another one, this was one of my past presidents. Her name was Lil. She was in her early 70s. She wanted to be the president so bad for many years, and it just never was really came up for her. But she was not a detail girl at all. And we were a little concerned about it, but she wanted to be president. It's like, yes, she ran, she won. So she went to some of the president's meetings and some of the meetings that we have like this. And she came back and she told us like, oh, what I learned about this year is that there's not going to be any paperwork. You don't need to fill out anything out for the whole year. And it's like, don't think that's exactly, maybe she heard something different than actually what was said, but it was her dream to be the president. And so it was our dream then to support her. So we kind of got behind her back, and somebody filled out those healthy club surveys. Somebody did the region and federation award applications. Someone filled out the grants. Someone put together her meeting agendas. It all got done, but it just didn't get done by her. But it was a successful year. She lived her dream, and it sort of let other members know that you don't have to be perfect at everything or anything, really. If I could be governor, if I could be on the SAA board, come on, you can do it too. And, it's just like being supportive and flexible is so important. And our presidents don't need to look like the past presidents. They don't need to do things the way the past presidents did. There's no judgment on how you're president. Some presidents are good. Some presidents are, different than what you've had before, but they're willing to step up and they're willing to do it. And so be flexible and figure out how to let them lead. I love being president because the members helped me. Susan, she was member for just a couple of years when they asked her if she'd like to be president. And she was waver, she's on the fence. She was afraid. She did not love speaking in front of groups. She was nervous that they had some pretty outspoken members and maybe they would be critical of her. And she was brave enough to share these concerns with the group. Last night, one of our participants on the Soropticall last night she talked about a board being a scary, hairy board, that people were afraid because of scary, hairy boards. It's like, I'm going to use that a lot. I'm going to use that phrase a lot. But she was afraid of the scary, hairy board. And so these members stepped up. They told her, look, if you'll do it, we'll offer you moral support. We'll do what you need and we'll help you delegate. So they provided the information that she needed to lead. They helped with her agendas and her club calendar. They simplified down the parliamentary procedure for her so she didn't have to deal with that so much. They made her little scripts and they sort of walked her through it. They let her sit instead of standing at a podium because that wasn't something that she was comfortable with at all. And they managed those members who might have tended to be critical in the past so that that wasn't an obstacle that she was concerned with. So those are, some things that can encourage someone to step up to be president or to step up to be on the board or fill a committee chair position. But what about now? I'm gonna just tell you straight and up front and right at you. It's like, if you have that concern, if you have that issue in your club, you're going to have some hard conversations because things are different now. And we need to figure out how we can make these leadership positions work for our club and for our members. So I want you to share some of so here's a couple things that might be helpful. So at least it might give you a starting point. And I have like 15 points, but I'm not gonna cover them all. So the first thing is we're gonna have to make things simpler. I mean, take a look at your club. If you're having an issue getting leaders to step up, make things simpler. We really are gonna have to do that because I don't see a time in the future where we're going to be able to let go of the hybrids or the Zooms completely. It's going to be hard to do that. And there's positive things about that, but it is something that we're going to have to adjust to moving forward. So if you can make things simpler, that will be good. If you don't, things aren't going to get better. And your ability to help women and girls is going to disappear. And there's nothing sadder than that. I mean, there's nothing sadder than seeing a club close because they just couldn't manage to get the leadership in place. So here's a tip. It's like, try and make things simpler just for the year. If you can see a way to make things simpler, doesn't mean you have to do it forever. Doesn't mean it has to become part of your club culture or tradition, but just try it for the year and see how it goes. And then have the conversations about whether or not you think this is something you can move forward with. Number two is like, use your club roadmap. I mean, you don't have to do everything. We all do so much. When you look at the list of things that we put in front of us as a club to do or to be or to handle, you have to change that. So you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do everything every year. You can do something one year and not do it the next year. It's like make some of your projects biennial, not every year, so that you can give yourselves a break and make things simpler. You want to stay mission oriented, women and girls. I mean, when things get to be complicated and overwhelming, don't stray too far from the mission. If you're spending your time and your resources on things that are not Soroptimist mission oriented, that can be exhausting. There's just so much, it's like, it's great to be able to serve your community in other ways as well. But if you're getting too overwhelmed and too burned out, just for the year, just drop some of those things and focus on your Soroptimist things, and it'll get a little bit easier. And maybe you can pick them up again next year, but it's like, make yourselves, don't make yourselves crazy. Here's one. Here's one that I love. And so whenever you have a chance, and maybe over the dark months that we have coming up, get your members together for dinner or for just a simple quick meeting that, isn't really for anything except talking about what do we love about Soroptimist. There is nothing for me more fun, or maybe make this at your next program meeting and, start that, pay $1 to say, your favorite thing. But, why did you become a Soroptimist? Have them go around. Why did you become a Soroptimist? Probably going to be some similar answers, but starts to remind people of why this is important and why we are passionate about this. What was your best Soroptimist moment? What was, since you've been a member, what was the thing that you remember the best that you loved? And have them share that. What was your favorite memory? What was the most fun that you had with other members at a Soroptimist event? Who was the most memorable Live Your Dream recipient that you had, whether it was within your club or at region? Who was that and why did that person stick with you? We are friends with each other. That's probably why we're still here, because you can serve in a lot of different charitable organizations, but you want to do it with your friends. If you have a chance to do it with your friends, that's where you stick. And so, keep in mind that new members aren't friends yet. I mean, maybe you know them, maybe you invited them to membership, but they're not necessarily in your friend group yet. So you want to make sure that they are friends, because if they are friends, they will start to step up into these leadership positions. But, if I could do one a year, if I could do one every 6 months, I'd love to go through and have those shared memories, because then you start to think, yes, I love this so much. And we get ourselves out of our little pandemic, haze and gloom that we might be in right now. Now, here's one that you're gonna love. I love saying this, and I always get like, oh my God, that's never gonna happen. But reduce the size of your board and see how it goes for a year. Get down to bare bones responsibility. Now, this is my own version of what that can look like. It may not exactly work for you, but honestly, the president, all she needs to do is set up a meeting. Make sure that there's chairs, make sure there's a place to meet, make sure there is a place to go, and write out an agenda. You don't even need to get detailed about it. There's, use the one that's on the SA website. You don't even need to change it. Just put the new date at the top and say, here you go. I'm going to run this for the whole year. So you don't even need copies of it. This is what I'm going to do. That's all. Just do an agenda, even as bare bones as you can. Cover your new business and your old business and your new and outstanding business. Talk about those things. If you can do that, that's all you need to do to be president. You don't need to do anything else. You shouldn't need to do anything else. What about vice president? I know we have a little different roles for our vice presidents in each club, but for example, your vice president, maybe that's the one who invites the program speakers. Maybe that's the one who sits behind the Zoom camera to make sure that it's looking at the right things for the folks that are on Zoom. And maybe she also sort of updates the websites and updates Facebook once in a while. Maybe that's all she has to do. Maybe she doesn't have to do anything else. What about the treasurer? Treasurer does have a little bit more, but she has a list. She has a list. If she follows the list and collects the dues, that's all she's got to do. It takes a little more time, but that's all she's got to do. Secretary, take minutes, distribute minutes, send out and receive correspondence. That's it. What else does secretary need to do? That's pretty simple. I think I could do that. I might even be able to do treasurer. And if you have like a fifth person, which you should have on a board to break ties, but maybe that director handles all the administrative paperwork. Maybe she fills out all the forms. Maybe she fills out all of those things. Maybe she submits all the applications, and maybe that's what she does. That's all she has to do all year. That's pretty good. That you don't need anybody else on the board. If you have other people, that's great. But if you're having a small club or you're having trouble getting people into those roles, condense. Try it just for a year. See how it works. Committee chairs, you really only need program, fundraising, membership. What else do you really need to be a good Soroptimist club? Not very many. Next, reduce the number of organizations and projects you donate to. If you're like running around trying to serve and do projects for a lot of different other organizations, you are going to burn yourself out. You are going to run yourself ragged. So just for the year, see if you can just condense that a little bit. You can start it next year if you want to, but just try it for a year. Smaller committees. When I've been a committee chair, it's like half the work of being committee chair is trying to get 6 or 8 committee members to decide when they're going to meet. That takes the most time of anything. So if you've got a chair, if you're a chair and 1 or 2 other members on a committee, sometimes that makes sense. Laws and resolutions. You don't need 5,000 people on that committee. Finance. You don't need a bunch of people. Public relations, because that gets covered by almost everything else, you only need a couple of people. Membership, honestly, doesn't require that many people because you're not the one in charge of bringing them in. You just need to give out the flowers and hand out the handbook. That's all you need to do. Do some things every other year. Not everything has to be done every single year. Take some, and this one's a big one, take some time and some quality time to have a planning meeting to set up your whole year. So if at your planning meeting, don't like, oh, we'll do it at a meeting, so it's an hour. I'm telling you, that will not be enough time. You need people sitting back, eating some food, having a little bit of wine. You need to be in a good mood, go around the room and say why you're happy to be a Soroptimist. It's always a good icebreaker to start with. But then you want to plan your whole year as best you can. Use your club roadmap. Organize your calendar, including the deadlines that you need, and then make sure everybody's got one. Choose your simpler committees and have them sign up right right there so that you already know going in what's going to happen. Choose your fundraiser or your fundraisers and set your time, set your dates, set your timelines. Decide on a membership goal. How many new members do you want and what's your plan to get there? Hopefully you've already got a budget done, but if not, make sure that you do have a simple one, at least for viewing purposes at that point. Determine what your fundraising goal is. And one of the things I just want to share, because I hear this so often, is like, oh, last year we made $25,000 and we got to do better this year. It's like, nobody said you had to do that. You don't. There's no Soroptimist jail. No one calls you and says, I'm sorry, you didn't exceed last year's, income. Nobody does that. So if what it takes to be simpler and make it easier for your members is to not worry about how much money you're going to raise, just raise enough for your dream programs and maybe a couple other things, and make sure you can get your lunches covered and call it a day. Next year, the year after that, maybe you can go back and look for your big old, your big pie in the sky number, but don't knock yourself out worrying about what your fundraising goal is. Just cover the things that you need to cover. Once that year is planned out, and once you've spent a couple of hours doing that, the rest of the year for the board, for the members, for the president, is just execute. Okay, here's what's next. There's not all the other drama and details and decisions that have to be made, every single week. You don't have to do it because it's already done. Combine some stuff, put your fundraiser and your Live Your Dream Awards together. There's no reason to have, multiple events that you have to plan for and figure out and invite and bring in the flowers and, special raffle gifts. You don't have to do any of that. Combine the stuff into one if you can do that. And, another thing I love to do is reach out to other local clubs and do some things together. So maybe some hands-on projects, maybe your new member recruitment or introductions, your personal projects, membership drives. You can do those with other clubs, and then the member can pick where they want to go. Attend each other's fundraisers so that you're starting to have fun with other people outside your club. Ask for help from region. I'm putting them on the spot right now. The ones who are outgoing are going, oh, thank God it's not me. And the ones that are coming in and go, oh my God, that's on the list. I didn't know. I wouldn't have run. But I got elected, darn it. She's saying this. But even the past leaders, they're going to be so thrilled to have a little extra time. If you need some help in your club, or if you've got some questions, or if you've got those potential leaders that are just afraid to do it, or just afraid to move forward, or just afraid to put their hand up, it's like, call one of these leaders and say, look, can you just jump on a Zoom and talk to our club members, or share with these, we have 3 or 4 members who might be interested in leadership, but they're just not there and they just aren't sure. And just have a one-on-one with us. They would be happy to do that. I know that they would. Get members thinking about the future. When I was nominating chair and I was trying to find people to run for the board, for the region board, I got a few that said, you know what, I just can't do it now, because sometimes we just can't. Sometimes we absolutely cannot. I can't do it now, but can you keep my name, because I might be interested for next biennium. That's like, oh yeah, write that down. So you don't have to say, look, I want you to be leadership. We need somebody this year. Have them start to think about the future. Ask them, you know what, do you think you might be interested in maybe a leadership role in the future? Not now. I don't want you now. There's no commitments now. All I want to know is it something that you can see yourself doing in the future? And maybe just start to think about that and leave it at that. But ask it all the time. Make sure that they're spinning in their head like, oh, maybe I could do this. And if you do a poor job, they're going to go, oh, I could do better than that. So I'll for sure run, so there's different little tactics you can put in their head to move them forward. And then I like to sort of wind up with, go to district and region meetings. Nothing gets your blood pumping faster and harder for a new year, for new goals, for new ideas, like going to a meeting, getting a broader scope of Soroptimists than just within your club. Now, just a show of hands, how many of you have been to an SIA convention or an SI convention? And when you came back, you had the little program they gave you, and they have the notes section in the back, and you've written all over it, and you've flipped on the back, and now you've got it on napkins, all the things that you're hearing and generating just from new people's input. You want to go back and you want to share it with members. And you're ready, you're ready to go. And so if you can get members to come to those things, at least the district meetings, at least the region meetings. It'd be great to be able to go to conference or to go to convention. If they can do that, that passion's going to be there. They go there, they're going to go back and go, oh, I think I should chair these 3 committees, and maybe I should be the president-elect, and maybe I should also run all the meetings. They're going to come back ready to do that. And the more you go, the more you get, and the more you want to do. So be ready to have good, honest conversations about change and about flexibility within your club. You're going to need to have to do it if you're having trouble getting new members in. I'm happy to talk to your clubs about that if you want to. I don't usually care what you want me to talk about. I usually just talk about what I want to, but I want to open it up. I want you all to turn on to unmute yourselves, and I want you to share what are some things that have worked for your clubs, and what are some obstacles that you're still facing? And maybe some of the other folks that are on the screen today can share what they've done. So open up your mics and feel free. Now's the time. We'll start with, do we have anything in the chat that maybe somebody asked?
No, we don't. I've been
Oh.
keeping track. But there have been a lot of things, resources have been put into it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Governor Christie put in the club's closing year end, which was Becky's presentation. So that's in the chat, and it's both in a PDF or in the PowerPoint. And I think that's pretty much it.
So Governor Christie, I like when the governor raises her hand for me to call on her.
I also put in the club roadmap. You can
Yes.
click on that and download that direct. Like Donna said, it's really simple. They're getting better and better at simplifying everything. But I'll just give you an example what our club does here in the Grand. We call it as easy as 1, 2, 3. We only have 3 meetings. We have the first meeting is the board meeting. The second meeting is the business meeting, and those are usually at noon. And then the third meeting is a social meeting, strictly social, at 5:30. We usually maybe have dinner, we have a little event, we drink a little wine, and we try to get together as just women and celebrate that. So that's been really, really working for us.
I'll tell you, we have been in the cocoon of the pandemic for a couple of years now.
Mhm.
And it's, when you get in this environment, we're used to it. We're used to sitting at home. We're used to, wearing sweatpants, we're at business meetings. We're used to doing that. And our minds get kind of, I don't want to say sleepy, but sort of hazed over with that pandemic, gloom. And, we're in it, and we figured out how to sort of work ourselves through. But it's not very much fun. And it's great to see all of you guys on a Zoom, but isn't it better when you can be in person? And I know every club's got their own thoughts on that, whether they are getting together or not. And a lot of it has to do with your members and how comfortable they are. And that we totally respect that. But to get together and to have conversations in person, and to be able to brainstorm a little bit, and to hear different ideas coming in on a piece of business that's coming before your members, it makes a difference. And we're coming out of it now. So if you're in the little larva cocoon that we've been in, it's time to be the butterflies. And it's time to maybe our wings are still kind of wet and wrinkled, but we should start to be figuring out how we can fly like we used to, and maybe even better now because of the introduction of Zoom. Maybe there are members that couldn't attend before that can now. I mean, there's all kinds of new things we can think about and consider and brainstorm about now that we have an idea in our heads about flexibility and change that we can handle and that we can embrace and we can all love. So, it's you got to start wading your way out of the murk and getting into the funness part of it all and the passionate part of it all. And you really only get that when you're in person and as best you can. And we may as well start now. So any questions or anything else that you guys are running, any obstacles that you're running into that you just don't know? You just don't know. What do I do to get out of this? Because in my club, we do this. What does that look like?
Laura from Port
Well-
Orchard has one.
Our club has been having nothing but Zoom meetings and we've had maybe 2 club meetings now. And now we're ready to, most of us are sick of it, but there's a few people that like it that way.
Well, yeah,
And so we are ready to start going back to having dinners at restaurants.
Yeah.
But that does not really work very well with Zoom. We've had some meetings in people's homes, but we're kind of outgrowing that. It's not really working that well because we have too many people. How can we make people that want to Zoom not feel cut off and included, but yet it's accommodating the needs of other people too?
one of the things I'll tell, I mean, one of the things we might have to change or do differently is if where you're meeting is in restaurants, that is a difficult thing to do unless you're in some place that's more isolated where you can put up a camera and put up your laptop. I'm still struggling with that, honestly, because I bring my laptop to every one of our meetings and I set it up, and I'm learning some things. I'm learning how to set up got some speakers, and it's still not perfect, but I'm getting closer. But I'll tell you, on the the NWR website, Sue Riney put together a couple of resources. One of them is her doing a video on here's how to do Zoom. Here's all you need to do Zoom. And she's also got that in a PDF as well, so you can read it. But it's one thing you just kind of have. Somebody's going to have to learn the technology a little bit. But worst comes to worst, if you're putting it on Zoom, people can call in, and sometimes that's even easier and better and clearer because they can hear better. So if you've got a Zoom meeting scheduled, it's like all they have to do is look on there, see the telephone number, call. At least they can listen and hear what's going on. It's not perfect, but we're going to get better and better at this as we go. I mean, our new governor is like, she's like the be all end all of Zoom technology and how to put that on. So I'm sure that she will share with us. And I know she's had some workshops on it before. I took like a ton of notes. But you might have to adjust some things in order to make that work, or find someplace else to meet. You just might have to.
We live in a small town, and we do not have a restaurant that will allow us to set up a Zoom meeting. So that's going to just mean that for the evening meeting, our social meeting, the Zoomers are going to be Zooming on their own.
It's going to be hard, but have them call in, because you can still set it up and set it on the table or on the chair, because you're not worried about the visual. But at least if they can hear, they can call in, and when you call in, you can hear it better than if you're listening on the computer.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a couple of comments. My club, SI Ashland, has started doing hybrid meetings, but we don't have a camera. We don't have, a fancy setup or speakers or anything like that. But what we did, and I get to monitor all this for our installation in a couple of weeks, but what we did today was our president-elect has a nice big tablet that she brought in that has a little keyboard with it, and she set that up and she used that because she could flip the camera on the rather than with the computer. She could flip the camera so she could monitor from there, and then she called in with her phone and she set that up at the table where the president was. And so our Zoomers could hear what was happening as long as anybody who was speaking went up to the front of the room to take and speak. And then she turned off all the sound from the iPad. And that way, nobody, you weren't getting the two doing the funny sounds that they do when they're two computers in the same room. And it worked well. We had about 6 people on the hybrid. And a couple of our members no longer live in our area. They had to move out of the area because of the fire that happened. And so they still haven't figured out where they want to take and land with other clubs. So they come to our Zoom meetings. And we were worried about them, but they still took and participated in this hybrid meeting. So it was real simple. We didn't put any money out or anything on it. We just had the tablet and the phone, and that was it, and it worked.
You can also do FaceTime. I mean, if you've got 3 or 4 members that have to do it, just have anybody who's got an iPhone, choose one of them and FaceTime with them, and then they can sort of hold it during the meeting. It's just a way to to help each other out. But a lot of us have FaceTime on an iPhone, and maybe that's a way to get them incorporated in a simple way.
Yeah.
What else? What else are you dying to talk about? What else are you going, this is not going to work, Donna. So I'm going to challenge you. Go ahead, because I got plenty of answers.
Hi, Donna. This is Kelly with the SI Baker County.
Kelly.
And I like being president because I am able to empower the rest of the club. And that's what I think is important role for a president is you don't have to do everything. You just run the meeting. And I've told, many club members that this is the easiest role in the entire club is to be president because you just run the meeting. The committees will come to you if they need advice, and that's about it. That's just all. I let the committees do their work and just help them out when they ask for help, and I stay out of their way.
Really from your lips to God's ears, because that is absolutely the truth. It is not difficult if you can delegate and you got other people willing to step up. How is it? What kind of conversation did you have with your members about delegating things to them?
Well, I remind them that we have a roster because we have so many people, so many members who don't come to meetings, and of course less now with COVID. It has died down a lot, but we have so many members that are, all you have to do is text or call or something, and they're willing to step up and help in whatever way they can. They may not always come to meetings. Meetings are a little boring and nothing really interests them, or, they're very busy with work or whatnot. So these members are a resource for every club member, even if it's just making prints or, doing something like simple like that. We have to value each and every member, whether they are at a meeting or not.
Yeah, excellent. Kelly, how long have you been a member?
It'll be 20 years next year.
And how many times have you been president?
Twice.
Ah, pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. I've done 4 times, but I've been longer than you. So we kind of match up. So I anticipate that any minute now you're going to run for a higher office, correct? Yes, got it down.
I'm sorry. I have already told everybody that I will not be running any more offices, period, because I have an 8-year-old and I have to focus on him.
Fine.
I was a late mommy, so
we're gonna make him a little Soroptimister, and then you'll have no excuses whatsoever.
And he does grow up.